Let's talk about this just for a second. There's a poll out that shows, and this might explain why Republicans are so cowardly when it comes to the president. Republicans are asked, who is a better president, Donald Trump or Abraham Lincoln? They're the only group, only Republicans said Trump was a better president than Lincoln. What do you make of that?
Is there a brick wall I can bang my head against a few times?
I get one.
I think I need a brick wall before I answer. I hadn't heard of that poll, but it sort of speaks further to the delusionary aspect of the Republican Party right now. This is not a party, this is a cult. And it has been a cult for a long time. And it wasn't just this Abraham Lincoln quote. I mean, what was it, a week or so ago, maybe not even that Rick Perry said that Trump was a chosen one.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even the first person to say that.
No, he wasn't.
You know, so it's amazing.
And there's a lot of ways, if you look at like the Public Religion Research Institute numbers, that, you know, it isn't just a pejorative to say that it's a cult. There's a lot of evidence that it is a racial and religious cult of personality in which his base is solidly among the white evangelicals that almost worship him and say that he's the chosen one of God. Yeah,
no, when I say that, I mean it. I'm not being rhetorical. I mean that literally, that there is a very cult-like aspect to what we're seeing going on with Trump, particularly in the aspect of Trump is he who must not be questioned, and all of his idiocies, all of his incompetencies, all of his mendacities must be explained in the framework of him being infallible.
Right.
So, in other words, if you see him being wrong, it's not he's being wrong; it's he's being so right that is beyond your puny ability to understand.
That's right. Yeah.
We'll understand it by and by.
Yeah. Well, when he tweeted himself out as Rocky with Rocky's body, I feel like for a lot of his base, they're like, that's how they really see him when they see him. That's what they see.
I think it is. I know somewhere Sylvester Stallone is just, just shaking his.
Yeah. And so, we were talking about this a little bit in the break, that I felt this same kind of vibe during George W. Bush's presidency, that one must not question George W. Bush. There were loyalty oaths that people had to sign to show up at his rallies. The idea that we were torturing people, which I thought at the time was the greatest shame that could be brought on America around the world. The greatest disrepute that could be placed on us was that we turned into torturers. And now I feel like even worse is being suborned with Donald Trump. And is it just being a Republican that they are just sort of authoritarian, and that whoever the president is who they worship? Because the same thing kind of did happen with George W. Bush.
It's a sense that there is no bottom, and there's also this sense that they want easy answers. They don't want to deal with the complexities of whatever challenge we face, foreign policy, domestic, whatever. There's this idea among Republicans that they want what I call the Cliff Clavin solution. For those of you who remember Cheers, Cliff is the loudmouth down at the bar who knows everything and knows nothing but has a simple solution for everything. That's what Republicans seem to reflexively seek, that sort of Cliff Clavin thing. And no one has, in the history of American politics, I believe, has been more Clavin than the guy in the White House right now. So in that regard, it's a perfect fit. George W., at the very least, and I don't give him much credit for a lot of things, but he was a recognizable adult.
Yeah.
He was a recognizable adult, and at least some aspects of political gravity were still at play there.
Yeah.
None of that.
And he seemed to, at a certain point toward the end of his presidency, to wake up, to realize that he'd been led off the cliff by the people who wanted war. And he seemed to have a conscience about it. There seemed to at least be something human inside of him.
I think he was I've said this before, I think he was a fundamentally decent guy. I think if you leave, the elephant, no pun intended, the elephant in the room, the politics, the war, all the rest of that stuff out of it.
Yeah.
I could imagine having a fine old time with George W.
But he seemed to have a soul, a heart.
There was a soul there,
The other kind of there's the cult-like aspect of what Donald Trump is doing, and then there's the actual aspect of it. Yeah. Because I was thinking the other day that the through line between his cruelties are that he's, A-okaying war crimes against Muslims, that he's A-okaying police brutality against black and brown people, that he's A-okaying, and in fact, his administration is caging and stealing people's children that are brown. Yeah. That seems to be the through line. How much of what Donald Trump has been able to get away with is in part because the Republican Party is now essentially a white party. They don't have very many non-white people there involved.
Well, the other thing I've called the Republican Party, in addition to calling them a cult, is a hate group. I think that, the evidence for that mounts on a daily basis. I think that a large part of the angst that we're seeing, let me back up. One of the things that bothers me is when what we're seeing is framed as a political issue.
Right.
It is not solely or even a majority political issue. This is an issue about one part of the country, many white Americans, not all, but many white Americans, uncomfortable, to put it mildly, with the idea that they are about to be a demographic minority, as are we all. So this is about all hands on deck, hair on fire, emergency. We will do this by any means necessary to evade this coming future. So that's where Trump comes from. Trump is the promise that whatever else happens, white people who believe in this, I will protect you, I will shield you from demographic reality.
Yeah, and all the data backs that up. Leonard Pitts, it's so great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. And coming up, I will tell you